Despite escalating violence and failed peace talks between the Western-backed Afghan government and the Taliban, the US military and its allies have almost completely left the country, 2 decades after the war began. The US deserted the Bagram Air Base just weeks ago, with plans to be completely out of the country by the end of August. But it comes as the Pentagon says Taliban fighters have taken up half of the Afghanistan countryside, putting pressure on provincial capitals.
We can all see the violence that's taking place across the country, but we know that with that violence, that what is very difficult to achieve is a political settlement.
So Afghanistan is left to defend and has been arming civilian militia groups.
That's a new chapter. We are faced with a new reality and we will deal with it.
The Taliban will take over.
This American veteran says it's clear the US has lost the war.
The whole point was to get rid of the Taliban. We didn't do that. I mean, really make it really simple. Did we do that? No.
And in this war-torn country, it is the civilians who are caught in the middle. More than 250,000 have been displaced in the country since the beginning of the year, taking the homeless population to 3.5 million. Still, with fears the Taliban will attack the thousands of Afghans who help the allies, including interpreters and drivers, there are plans to relocate some to the US and other countries. But the US is still assessing their applications. In Australia, the Defence Minister said 1,500 Afghans have received protection visas over the past 8 years. But more recently, the Prime Minister says he's considering repatriation flights to bring more home. It comes after veterans burn their medals in protest for the interpreters left behind.
I just saw this as, you know, my last-ditch effort, to be honest. If it's not done today, this government will have blood on its hands.
To tell us more, photojournalist Barat Ali Batoor joins us from Melbourne, where a film he made about his journey to Australia has been selected for the city's documentary festival. Congratulations, Barat, and welcome to The Drum.
Thank you very much, Julia. Thank you.
Now, tell us why you wanted to tell this story. What is it that we still need to understand about this journey from Afghanistan, from a place of conflict for so long, to Australia?
I think this story needs a lot of attention because the history is repeating itself time and again. So we have been going through this for the last 40 years and nothing seriously has been done to this. So when I left Afghanistan, when I had to leave Afghanistan after receiving threats, so I documented that journey, and I feel like that history is being repeated, and now a lot of more people are in the same situation that is stuck in between the parties, which are government, the US and the Taliban. It is just the people who are suffering, and people. I just want to tell the story of those people who are suffering, who are like the prime target.
Has it been of concern to you the question of have we been as committed to accepting people fleeing a conflict as we are to fighting in as we have been to fighting in that conflict?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Oh, has it been a concern for you about whether governments or the Australian government has been as committed to protecting people fleeing from war in Afghanistan as they have been to actually fighting in the war in Afghanistan?
I think in both ways we have not been very successful and committed. So even in the fight, the US and the NATO allies were not very serious to fight the Taliban, and like we see the result that the US has just this reckless withdrawal is resulting in a lot of mess in Afghanistan and putting a lot of people into to be sacrificed there. And also like in resettlement and accepting people as well, like I think Australia can play a very much better role. And at least, first of all, like I will just touch on like the people who have helped us in Australia, in Afghanistan, the interpreters and those others who have helped us. So they are like, we should have some very immediate solutions for them. Like we have to at least take them somewhere safer when they like after then they can go through a lot of those bureaucratical process. And given that now we have thousands of refugees onshore and in our detention. So like they need attention. We don't have any reason left to keep them in with uncertain situation, and like they've been already traumatized and been tortured a lot.
So you don't believe that the Western troops should have withdrawn?
I think they should have done the withdrawal after they have fixed everything. But I think they are by their withdrawal they are creating more disturbance and mess in the country, because the Taliban has been legitimized and they are more empowered and they are coming with more power, with legitimacy, and a lot of countries are just kind of recognizing them. While in the 90s, like Taliban was only accepted by 3 countries, like they were officially accepted, recognized. But now it is US is involved, and like everyone is kind of giving them the legitimacy that they don't deserve.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring in the rest of the panel now, Barat. Now, Gray, there's long been a discussion about mission creep here. And when President Biden withdrew his troops, he said it was never, the US didn't go to Afghanistan to nation build. We went to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11, to deliver justice to Osama bin Laden and degrade the terrorist threat, so that Afghanistan wouldn't become a base from which the attacks against the US could be levelled. Therefore, they said they've been achieved, and that's why we went. Is that right?
Not really. I mean, regional mission, and I served in Afghanistan. I was there in 2006. I was mainly in Iraq.
Yes.
Iraq was the big war. Afghanistan was very much, but my duties took me to Afghanistan. So I was in Kabul and Kandahar for a period. The original aims in the war was post-September 11, go into Afghanistan. It was Taliban were giving a haven to Al-Qaeda, go after Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And so most of that mission was completed in early to mid-2002. You had Tora Bora, Osama bin Laden escapes, the Taliban pushed out of Kandahar in late 2001. So that mission is kind of there. Bush and Obama, and to be fair to Biden as Obama's vice president was never for staying in Afghanistan. He was always against it, so I'll give Biden credit. But Bush and Obama both want to stay in Afghanistan. They both want to stay there to rebuild Afghanistan. So you had things like provincial reconstruction teams that were there literally to try and help Afghanistan. Now, we've had 20 years. I don't mean to be rude to Barat, but when I was there in 2006, the Royal Marines, who were in Helmand in southern Afghanistan, they had their highest ammunition usage since the Korean War. The idea that we were not trying to fight there, we were. It's just that it's a very, very hard slog for Western armies that are not going to be colonisers. If you want to take over Afghanistan and do it properly, and you want to effect change, I'm afraid
you're talking about takeover.
You are literally taking over. You're literally going to have to colonise the place, because there's no other way of doing it. There's no way to stay in a country for decades on end without effectively colonising, because you're effectively a hostage to fortune. And from our perspective, we're not there to be the saviours of the Afghans. The Afghans had to do more of the heavy lifting themselves. We were putting an expeditionary army in a war zone that was abutted by Iran, which has significant equities in Afghanistan, Russia, which has always had equities there, and Pakistan, which props up the Taliban. I mean, the idea that somehow we could just be basically a médecins sans frontières with drones and guns is just ridiculous. We could never do that.
Barat, would you like to respond to that?
I think we had a great role to play, and especially like now the responsibility, which I in my beginning statement I said, like it is just between the 3 parties. It is between Taliban, the US and NATO allies, and the Afghanistan government. Those politicians. So those politicians have been empowered, and like the corruption have been kind of promoted, or like kind of it was widespread with the support of the NATO allies and the US. So that was one of the main reasons I think that the system has failed and Taliban has succeeded. So if from the beginning the system was put in place in a way, and like the promotions of the corruption and the warlords and all these were not safeguarded, I think we would have been in a very different position. And I think for that, US and the NATO allies should take responsibility.
Can I ask you, Osman, about the politics of this situation? I know you discussed this with Karen Middleton on your podcast, and the question of there was so little advance notice. Was it 4 days given to the government in Afghanistan about the withdrawal? There was a sense of haste about it, and obviously lack of warning. How do you interpret our decision to return, or even contemplating returning in some capacity?
I think throughout the withdrawal, the thing that has really struck me is how little debate there's been in Australia, both in terms of public discourse and amongst our politicians, about what it was going on in the lead up to the withdrawal and what is happening now. For months and months and months, the US was negotiating with the Taliban about what the terms of a withdrawal would look like. And I think Barat is right. One of the most interesting and perhaps depressing things about the situation we're in now is, in some ways, in a lot of ways, the Taliban are in fact more empowered and more legitimized by the West than they were prior to the invasion, because we sat down and negotiated outcomes with them. We recognized them as a legitimate force that we had to withdraw from and figure out what the terms of that were. There was very little discussion of that in Australia. In Parliament, there was no discussion of what we were trying to get as part of those discussions. And I think our absolute lack of strategy is borne fruit by the fact that the foreign minister apparently didn't want to withdraw. She went to Afghanistan. 2 days later, the embassy closure is announced, and now within a couple of months, we're trying to get back in. I think not only does it speak to a lack of coherence from the federal government on this, it's actually a massive, not disrespect is not putting it strongly enough. This is a country that we invaded and that led to the bloodshed of enormous amounts of people, particularly Afghans, but also Australian forces. And the way that this is being handled now, I think, is just doing them all a disservice. It's suggesting that we have no idea what we went in to do, and we have no idea what we're doing now.
Silma, what is our obligation to those who helped us in Afghanistan? Now, we do know that there are, in the US and the UK have got officers on the ground in Kabul helping people like process visas, so if they're applying for citizenship or to get back to those countries. In Australia, it is taking a longer time, and there seems to be a lot of people who are still waiting to even go through the paperwork and get processed.
Look, I think, first of all, I agree with the previous speakers. We should never have invaded in the first place. If you want to punish somebody, come in and then leave. But really, I agree. We didn't have a strategy when we went in. We don't have a strategy when we're leaving. We didn't really set about clear, achievable goals, and we didn't plan it properly, either the entry or the exit. Since we've been in there and people have risked their lives to support the troops, the US troops and the Australian troops and all the other NATO and allied forces that are there, we have an obligation to protect them. They were effectively our employees. They interpreted for us, they worked for us, they risked their lives continuously for our forces, and then to exit and just leave them holding the bag and then say, well, sorry, you're sacked and we don't care. This is appalling. It's bad enough that we went in there. It's bad enough that we didn't know what we were doing. It's bad enough that we actually ended up by making things a whole lot worse in the long run. But now then just to walk away and say, oh, well, it's not our problem. This is not the kind of country that we should be. If we want to help people, we have to commit and do it properly, not just walk away and then leave people to die and be butchered, horribly murdered because they supported us. It's something that in history, I think we will go down as wrong from the beginning to the end. And the way that we treat the people that supported us there will affect our role in international conflicts for a long time to come.
Right, and there's so veterans who are so upset about this, Gray, that they have been burning their medals, as we showed before. Yes,
I think we have to bring home our interpreters, contractors, anyone who's vulnerable. No one will ever work with us again if we do not. And I think we owe at least that debt of honour to people who risk their lives, that of their families' lives. The Taliban send night letters to people where they get a letter in the middle of the night threatening that them and their family. I mean, we've got to bring them out. And I just think the whole thing, I mean, the facts are we were always going to withdraw from Afghanistan. The fact that we did not have a plan ready to go for when that was going to happen, it's just been this. It's been embarrassing.
Barat, you've done some really...
Julie, can I just add one
yeah.
very quick thing on this? I think not only in terms of the translators and the people that worked with Australian forces do we need to be bringing them home, absolutely, but the point that Barat made earlier was so spot on as well. There are people, Afghan refugees, languishing in the Australian detention system right now. The idea that we would weigh up letting them or sending them back to Afghanistan as we've withdrawn, as the Taliban is marching throughout the country, is just inhumane and unfathomable. It is absurd right now that we are not immediately freeing those people and letting them settle in Australia.
Barat, you've done some really fascinating and important work documenting the lives of people in Afghanistan, but also the journey of Hazaras over to Australia. You've won Walkley Awards for your photographs, and congratulations on this documentary, and we really appreciate your time on The Drum this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Barat Ali Batoor is a photojournalist from Afghanistan.